and welcome to the GSMC Chip Shot Football Podcast brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. I'm your host, Manny Mardiege, and today is October 28th, Monday, here to recap what we saw yesterday in Week 8 action, but also preview a little bit of what we're going to see tonight in the preview to Monday Night Football with the Steelers taking on the New York Giants. That's one of the games we'll be talking about today, but also, just a bunch of the recaps from yesterday, looking over Sunday Night Football, the Patriots game, the Browns game, also against the Ravens, and of course, the miracle play in Washington when the Commanders defeated the Chicago Bears. So all of that will be on store for us today on today's episode. Make sure to stick around and watch the entirety of that, but also, before we start, I'd like to remind you guys, if you have any questions or comments, to please use the new Super Chat feature we have available to you guys just by using the new Super Chat button. And by using that, you'll be able to click the $ at the bottom of the chat box to send in your Super Chat. In this way, it guarantees that your message gets on the air, and it's also a fantastic way to support our channel, and we rely on your support to keep bringing you the sports content that you love, and we appreciate every bit of it. So go ahead and let us know what you're thinking and hit that Super Chat button to get involved with the show. Comment, question, opinion you'd like to share on today's show. Just get involved. It always makes it a lot better when you guys are part of the show. And it takes it to a different place, makes it more conversational for anything that I bring up or anything you guys like to talk about. So that'll be that. We'll start off by previewing the Monday Night Football game that we have on tonight. Obviously, the last game of Week 8, the Steelers taking on the New York Giants. The week concludes tonight as Pittsburgh hosts another New York team in Pittsburgh. The 2-5 Giants go to Pittsburgh after a 28-3 loss to the Philadelphia Eagles, while the Steelers try to earn the same result in Russell Wilson's first start last week, trying to get another win in back-to-back weeks against two New York teams. And the Steelers are also, with a win tonight, would go to 6-2 before heading into their bye week next week. And the Jets currently enter as 5.5-point underdogs into this game last time I checked, and with a ton of quarterback questions, or I'd rather say quarterback doubts, I would say. Just quarterback, more questions than answers, really, with Daniel Jones, just because of the fact that they have the 30th ranked offense, and while last game didn't go their way against the Philadelphia Eagles, now they face another tough defense in Pittsburgh's, who is second in takeaways and points allowed. They only come into this game allowing 14.4 points per game, so it'll be a tough task for the Giants, especially because the Giants average about 14 points per game. So those averages match up pretty identical to each other. So it'll be a very good test, one for the Giants, but also you can see why they are underdogs heading into this game. But more so on the Giants and kind of how it's been an odd season for them. Through all of that, head coach Brian Daboll still remains adamant that Daniel Jones is their starting quarterback. He was, I guess, technically benched for Drew Lock in their last game, but the game was already out of hand. It wasn't a real, sincere, meaningful benching, right? If that makes sense. They just took him out because the game was already pretty much said and done. But with that being the case also, there is a little bit something there, right? It feels like there's just some underlying issue there, it feels like, just because, Daniel Jones, he said, I think, after the game that he didn't like being benched. He didn't like being taken out of the game, regardless of, obviously, the circumstance. So, for the Giants, for head coach Brian Daboll, they wanted to try and avoid that again, and that starts tonight against this very, very highly rated Steelers defense. What better way to make an impact, right? After the game you had last week in New York, to come on the road and make it a game against Pittsburgh. I think because a lot of people are probably already writing off the Giants going into tonight, but what's interesting about them is the fact that the Giants do a lot better at home than they do they do a lot better on the road than they do at home. An interesting note just around this matchup also, Pittsburgh hasn't lost a Monday Night Football game at home since 1991, while Daniel Jones so far this year is only one of 3 quarterbacks with 2+ touchdowns and 100+ quarterback rating in 3 road games. So kind of to show you and emphasize the fact that Daniel Jones, on the road, where games might seem like they're even more against their favor. Against the Seahawks, they put up a great game. Also, against the Commanders, their offense played all right. They didn't win that game, but they played a little bit better than they have at home. Also, that one. And it just compared to their road games, right? It's just, even against the Cleveland Browns, they won that game where I'm sure a lot of people didn't think they would put up much of a fight. Whereas the home games, you look at the 28-6 loss to the Vikings, another home loss to the Cowboys, 20-15, and the latest one being the loss to the Bengals, 17-7. You look at those handful of games, and then compared to the road games, it's almost night and day, but it just feels like Daniel Jones, for whatever reason, plays a lot better on the road. So that is something to watch out for as an interesting note, right? You don't see a lot of teams or quarterbacks specifically that are struggling be better on the road, but we'll see how that pans out in tonight's matchup on the road in Pittsburgh. And for the Steelers, now switching over to them a little bit, on the injury note, there's not going to be any Zach Frazier tonight or Nick Herbig. Zach Frazier is dealing with an ankle injury, the rookie center that has taken over the starting spot for the Steelers. He will not be in action tonight. And same thing for Nick Herbig. He's been dealing with that hamstring injury for a couple of weeks now, and it doesn't look like he'll be able to go. The Steelers expect both of them to come back after their bye week, so the bye week is coming at a great time for them. If they manage to win tonight, heading into the bye 6-2, and then getting Frazier, Nick Herbig back, Cam Sutton also is coming off of the commissioner's list as well for his suspension. So, they're getting a lot of people back. Hopefully they'll be healthier going forward. But, those are some of the guys inactive tonight. And also Cordell Patterson for the Steelers, I forgot to mention, will not be active tonight. He was questionable going into this game, but ultimately will not be able to make it. And, interesting for the Steelers. It's important for them to get a win tonight, going into that bye week, like I mentioned, and after that bye week too, because the whole talk about the Steelers has been their second half schedule. And with that second half schedule, after their bye week, they're going to play Washington on the road. And then after that Washington game, you could say that their season really starts, because they're going to start playing their divisional games. They haven't played a single one up until this point. And after that, the last 8 weeks of the season, 6 of them are going to be against AFC North opponents. So basically all of those games are going to count very much towards the division, towards the conference, towards seedings and everything. It's important that they get one of these wins before, the real test, the harder tests come after their bye week. And those 2 games that they don't play, the division rivals, they play the Eagles and they play the Chiefs. So you don't really get much of a break. The last 8 weeks for the Steelers are going to be a gauntlet, to say the least. So it is better to just go into the bye week with as much positives as you can and hopefully come out of it a lot more healthy, just to gear up for those last 8 weeks. And for the Giants on the other side, looking at their injuries, I would say some more severe ones for them, certainly, because you have no Andrew Thomas. He's already been ruled out for the year. Jermaine Illuminor, their other tackle, should be good to go tonight. There was some doubts about him potentially being out, but I think he should be healthy enough to go tonight, and they're going to need him against TJ Watt, of course. There was some questions with Dexter Lawrence and Brian Burns, but both of them should be good to go. There was no injury designation for Dexter Lawrence, and he's obviously arguably the biggest piece to their puzzle, leading the league in sacks and just leading their defense overall. And same thing with Brian Burns, coming over from the Panthers, getting that massive contract. He's been a pretty big impact player for them already this year, so he was dealing with some injuries, but he should be good to go tonight. And the Giants, just heading into this game, they're trying to snap a 2-game losing streak. Their last win was at Seattle. Talking about their road success previously, that was their last win. They lead the NFL in sacks, like I mentioned, with Dexter Lawrence leading everybody with 9. So they have some things going for them. Pretty odd, dynamic to this team, right? Because you look at the 2-5 record, you look at Daniel Jones and the questions around him, you might be thinking, what does this team have going for them? And they have a very good defense. Their defensive line's very good. I know Kayvon Thibodeau is not playing, but he just adds to it, and they get after the quarterback. They're doing that part at least, right? So looking at that and taking that into our matchups, with the Steelers not having Zach Frazier tonight and obviously facing Dexter Lawrence, one of the matchups I'm looking at is between Pittsburgh's backup center, Ryan McCollum, and Dexter Lawrence. Really, it won't be a one-on-one matchup. Dexter Lawrence, one, moves all over the line, and also, if the Steelers are going to have Ryan McCollum one-on-one against Dexter Lawrence, that's a huge problem already. So it's really going to be the entire interior offensive line going up against Dexter. Mason McCormick, the right guard, Isaac Seumalo, the left guard, and Ryan McCollum as well. How much can they negate Dexter Lawrence from taking over the game? Or will Dexter Lawrence have his way with the backup center? And also, I failed to mention the rookie right guard for the Steelers. That'll be a huge matchup, obviously, for the Steelers, who have been running the ball better. They're going to try and keep that going tonight and trying to keep Russell Wilson clean. Not the most mobile quarterback, obviously, so that'll be huge. Also, on the other side, TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith going up against the Giants' offensive tackles, right? Where the Steelers are missing some offensive line pieces, the Giants are as well on the outsides, at least Andrew Thomas, right? So Alex Highsmith should, you would think, have a little bit more success over there. How do they maneuver the protection if Alex Highsmith is getting, in too quickly? Do they move some guys over there? You're not going to not double team TJ, so that's obviously going to affect it. That sort of dynamic, that give or take between the offensive line and trying to block TJ and Alex Highsmith, will be huge in this matchup. And also, a little bit to the first point, Najee Harris against the Giants' entire defensive line. How much can they negate him and force the Steelers to pass a lot more? So with that, the matchups out of the way, lastly, we're just going to get to my prediction here. And I think I'm going to take the Steelers. I like the Steelers in this game just because I know the Giants, the road wins, I should say, at this point. Their overall performance on the road has been pretty encouraging for, a team that I think a lot of people would say is still on the come up. But that offensive line worries me a lot, especially against TJ and Alex. Daniel Jones was sacked 7 times last week. And, the Eagles have a great defense as well. They have great guys on the defensive line. So Alex and TJ on that line, not to mention Cam Heyward as well. How much can that affect the running game? And Malik Nabers was a non-factor last week. I am anticipating he should be a little bit more involved this week. So maybe the Giants try to go quicker, try to get him the ball a lot faster, not having Daniel Jones hold the ball too long. But ultimately, I only think that could get you so far before the Steelers defense, adjusts to that. And then once you start holding the ball a little bit longer, that's when I get nervous. And Daniel Jones has been known for having those turnover problems. So I like the Steelers. I like the way Russ looked last week after kind of shaking off some of the rust. I think he only gets better from here, getting more familiar with his guys, the offensive line, George, all his wide receivers, and, the tight ends and whatnot. I think he gets better. It's good that he has back-to-back home games, and going into the bye, I think this will be a good game for him. So I'll take the Steelers to win. We'll say 27 to 16, I'll say. 27 to 16 will be the final score tonight. Steelers will go to 6-2, and the Giants, unfortunately, will go to 2-6. But that'll be the game on tonight. We're going to recap a lot of the games that we saw yesterday because there was a lot of great games on, starting with the Sunday Night Football game between the Cowboys and the San Francisco 49ers. A close one, but ultimately the Cowboys fall again. What do we say about this Cowboys team now, right, going forward? More on them and the game overall when we come back after our first break.